I'd like to talk to you about some skills that entrepreneurs have. And if you're interested in starting your own business, these are some skills that you can develop. They tend to be soft skills, not necessarily something that can be easily acquired at school, but they're also skills that anyone can develop over time. And so we'll look at some entrepreneurs and what skills they have and consider how those skills can be developed. So, um, not everyone is suited to be an entrepreneur. Uh, that's why most people work for other companies. They don't have these skills, they don't want to develop these skills, they don't want to put in the work, and as a result, they choose other careers. So, for those of you who are considering this path, you not only need to know all the business terms like finance, a little bit of accounting, a little bit of economics, a little bit of management, how to market, things like that. You also need some soft skills that can be developed over time. For example, there are lots of people who could code, like Mark Zuckerberg, but he had the idea of pairing it with sort of social connections and making taking people's circle of friends, the old way of having calling people on the phone, and combining that with his technology skills into a new innovation that became Facebook. So, if you think you want some examples, just go through the neighborhood and look at what some of the small businesses are, and what skills the owners need to make things succeed. So for Phil Knight, he started off distributing shoes um, in the late 60s while working as an accountant. And then he was importing shoes from Japan and selling them to runners in the Portland, Oregon area. His partner, Bill Bowerman, was very, very creative. He could design new shoes. Uh, Phil was very passionate about running, very, very passionate about the business he was involved with, and uh, as a result, was very connected to runners. Eventually, he realized that there was only so much they could do importing shoes for others, and the two of them decided to take their creativity and make a new company that became Nike. So, entrepreneurs are good at researching because they have to learn a lot about their field. Phil Knight was initially inspired by Japanese camera companies that were taking over the North American market, and learned about Japanese production techniques, and realized that that was something that could be brought into the athletic shoe market and disrupt it. A lot of tennis shoes were out there, but there wasn't really much for running. So Bill Bowerman was always researching how to make the lightest, grippiest shoe for runners. So before they could start Nike, Bowerman and Knight just had to really know their stuff. So, you're gonna have to do some research, and maybe you go online, you look at demographics, you read journal articles, you hire a consultant, you get a lawyer who can help you start your own business, but you're probably going to have to just spend some time hitting the books and looking up these informations yourself. Then you have to use the information. You have to, for example, put it together to make a pitch. Hey, this big untapped market that's out there, and we're going to succeed. A lot of co- companies, they looked at from the point of view of their customer. Southwest Air was, well, what if we could, like, what do people want? Well, they want it to be a bit more fun to travel. They'd like it to be a bit cheaper. They want to reduce waiting times at the airports. And once they figured out what people wanted, they brought that into Southwest Air, and it entered the U.S. market as a sort of a budget carrier that was pretty fast and great for be able to build a lot of loyal customers, because it was taking what people wanted and creating an airline for them. You're going to be managing people. So all those management tasks from a couple of weeks ago, planning, organizing, directing, setting goals, making sure that people are on task. And you're going to have to manage yourself, right? You're going to have to set some goals for yourself and make sure you're working hard, that you're hiring some good employees. Steve Jobs said the secret to their success at Apple was that they made the biggest effort to hiring the very best out there. So he needed to know what makes a good human resources person before Apple became big enough to have that own department. Again, Phil Knight, he hired people who were very, very passionate runners, and he knew that their interest in the sport would help them be enthusiastic while they're on the job. And you have to have good relationships, building good relationships with staff, suppliers, customers, being able to understand how others are feeling. Sometimes people say the customer is always right. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think you should prioritize the employees, because if the employees are really motivated at work, if they're having fun, if they feel like they're making a difference, then they'll treat every single customer with respect. Whereas if you just satisfy one customer at a time, you're going to be putting out a lot of fires, and the employees might feel that they're taken for granted. Whereas good employees, really win over many, many, many customers. Uh, Starbucks has a management policy where they value the baristas and make them part of the team and give them their insurance and give them ownership in the company and give them the ability to go back to school. And as a result, these baristas are very, very loyal to the company. There might be some very specialized skills. You'll have to create something new. You'll have to be, for example, Mike Holmes started off his contracting business building homes, but he had to be an expert builder himself. And he had to, if he wasn't amazing at building all types of homes on his own, he wouldn't have been able to start his own business in the field. He had to learn what there was to know about construction. It was a short description of the early years of Nike.
Who called it crazy plan first?
That was certainly my father's reaction. So I summed it up in the book that way. But most people thought it was crazy. That I know when I finally got going a little bit, why people around Portland, Oregon, which is kind of a small city atmosphere in a larger city, they said, Phil Knight, he's got a Stanford MBA and he's selling Japanese sneakers. And so most people thought it was crazy, but I didn't think it was crazy. And the good thing was my college professor that I wrote the paper for didn't think it was crazy.
And the reason you were interested in running, that wasn't your first sport.
Well, my first sport was baseball, but I got cut from the baseball team. And we were talking earlier before about the coincidences in life. I was the last guy cut on a 25-man team. Just think if I'd have made that team, where would we be today?
We wouldn't all be runners, or nobody would be runners.
We wouldn't be sitting here talking today, I promise you that. But I did get cut.
And it hurt.
Oh, it killed me. And it still bothers me, but and my mother said, I had twin sisters that were twins, and my mother says, leave him alone, he's really suffering. And then finally she said, that's enough of this moping around the house. You either go out for track or get a paper route. So I went out for track.
Why shoes? I mean, why not knee socks or sweaters? I mean, what was it to start with shoes?
Shoes basically are the one important piece of equipment for a runner. That if it's basketball, it's a ball. If it's baseball, it's a bat and a mitt. And but running, shoes are it. And my old coach firmly believed that an ounce in a pair of shoes over a course of a mile was worth 10,000 pounds in the last 3 yards. And so he was obsessed with it, and it kind of caught my attention. And then I became kind of a guinea pig of his on experimental shoes, and so it built from there.
That Coach Knight is talking about was Bill Bowerman, a legend at the University of...
So you get the idea. There's going to be some setbacks. In this case, he mentions a little bit of a sporting setback, but there were people who were ridiculing the idea. There's going to be perhaps being turned down from a loan. The ability to keep going even though it's challenging, is going to be, and resilience is going to be very important to an entrepreneur. So when you start a business, you have to determine if it is feasible. Is it a venture that can actually succeed? Now, we wouldn't say, well, did Phil Knight know in 1965 that he would form a multi-billion dollar shoe company? No. Was it feasible enough that he could have a chain of shoe stores around Portland, Oregon, and the West? Yes, I mean something like that. Because you can't be that Jeff Bezos unicorn. That is really hard. But you want to understand: is this feasible? Can I bring this idea to market with a reasonable amount of money in a reasonable amount of time? And if I bring it to market, will people want to buy it? You don't want to be chasing. It's not just any idea, it's got to be a feasible idea. So here's, Jeff Bezos at his first desk. So, Amazon, as it got started, was to on books, and you can see that desk was initially a door, and the office was pretty rough. But he still felt that books, they don't go bad. They're rectangularly shaped, so they can easily be shipped. Bookstores were charging a big markup on the book itself just to have it stacked on shelves. But really, it was rarely something that you needed to have at that one moment. You could wait a couple of days for it to arrive, and he felt that people would be appreciate the book being delivered to their home and at a cheaper price. But it didn't suddenly become Amazon as we know it today. This was him during the early years when he had to make even his own desk. So you ought to bring it all together. So there's two different types of companies. There's a market-driven company, meaning that there is a market out there, that there's a need for it. For Phil Knight, he knew because he was jogging and running that there was a market of runners out there. Jeff Bezos knew that there was a market of readers out there because it's a pretty popular activity. There's bookstores everywhere. He knew that there were enough readers out there. He just had to reach them. So a market-driven idea means that you create an idea based on a market being out there. So if we were to say, okay, Young and Eglinton, if perhaps there's a lot of Persian people, citizens living in the area. Maybe there's a market for a Persian restaurant. That would be kind of the idea. Then the idea driven is that you have something about it, that your product that stands out. So for Jeff Bezos, it was the books by mail, and now anything by mail. For Phil Knight, it was the lightest running shoes on the market that would give the runners the winning edge. If you're a chef, maybe you launch your own restaurant because you've done the culinary training and that you can cook, so you can make an idea-driven venture. And the best ones bring together an idea with a target market that's ready to receive it. So it was that market of runners who felt they couldn't get the right kind of shoes from the existing providers. It was the other people who were frustrated paying too much for bookstores, and they were very receptive to the new ideas. So an idea-driven enterprise starts with a new invention or an innovation, and a market-driven enterprise is as a result of a need, something that customers want, something that's out there that isn't provided. So how do we figure out if there's a market? Well, we look at the market segment of similar products to see, what's already out there. You wouldn't want to look, if there were 12 Italian restaurants at Young and Eglinton, you would not want to be the 13th Italian restaurant. It's too crowded. So what we do is perceptual mapping or product mapping, where you visualize all the products and and that are out there, and you group them according to their features. So here's an example of ice cream bars. So let's say the key variables are classic flavors and new flavors. So we put that along the x-axis. And the other flavors is organic, non-organic. You could have price, quality of ingredients, modern cuisine versus traditional cuisine for a restaurant. Things like that. Many varieties of colors for running shoes versus not many colorways. And so here we have all the different ice cream bars are out there, ranging from classic, non-organic to organic and innovative. And what you would do, you'd look at this bar and see if there's a way to fit in there. Is there a gap? If we did grocery stores in the North Toronto area, we'd put all the Stack, the Pusateris, the Farm Boy, the Loblaws, No Frills, Metro. We'd put that all out there, and we'd see where can our business be located, and we'd create one where there was a gap in the market. So when you're doing a business plan, you would want to, firstly look at the market. Don't just jump in. Go do that research, go utilize that information, and making a product map is part of that. That's a good first step. So just the idea of an idea. Now you need the best ventures have a market and a good idea. So an invention is something that has never been done before. Like an iPhone, something totally new. Nike running shoes were an invention because the old shoes were like white tennis shoes, and these were the first lightweight shoes with a rubber tread. So you can. It's something totally new. And there's innovation, which is using technology in a new way. So, for example, Spotify uses networks, 5G networks, smartphone streaming services to allow people to stream music. They didn't invent the idea of listening to music on your phone, but they refined it by making a new way. So they make new production techniques, new distribution techniques, new improvements, slight improvements over the previous variation. So maybe one car comes out with a rear view camera, another car comes out with blind spot detection as a way to sort of innovate. Another one has sensors around the car to prevent accidents. They all keep innovating and advancing incrementally the safety features. So an innovation is using new technologies to improve existing products or create it in a new way. So Netflix took going to the video store and innovated it by having you stream the products through your television, through your home internet connection. And there's two types. You can have recombinant innovation, which is taking two different fields and bringing them together. So an idea of recombinant innovation could be Uber. Let's take taxis, let's take smartphone apps and combine them to make a ride-sharing app. Incremental innovation would be like the phonograph was created, then record players were created, then tape players, then high quality stereos, and the quality of the speakers and the music playing equipment keeps getting better and better and better over the course of the years. So once you create your invention, you'll need to protect it so that others cannot copy it. You could choose to sell the patent later on, but you gotta protect it. So a patent is the right of ownership for the invention. So if you invent a thing, you need to patent it. You would check in Canada and in the United States Patent Office to see if anyone had created an invention like yours before you got underway, because if someone has, then you cannot profit by it. Copyright is for writing, artwork, music, software, creative works. So if you were to program a new app, you would get a copyright on your software. If you were to write a new piece of music, you would get a copyright on your music. So patent for real things, copyright for creative work.